idea for the show.
I still don't know what the idea is.
It's about nothing.
Right.
Everybody's doing something. We'll do nothing.
They say, what's your show about? I say nothing.
There you go.
I think you may have something here.
Cross Coast Bias presents the League About Nothing podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We have our Week 7 recap show featuring Al's continuing existential dread and a bevy of quarterback injuries.
Yeah, that's not helping.
Well, they weren't your quarterbacks this time. Well, unless you count Huntley. Let's start there. We had some tough injury luck this week, everyone. Specifically at the quarterback position. I'm not sure how much of this is going to impact fantasy, but we're going to cover it anyways.
Oh, it was a bloodbath.
Yeah, it was. So the one I just mentioned, Snoop Huntley hurt his throwing shoulder in the Miami game. This might not matter because we believe that Tua will be back soon. He's already been activated for his practicing, and they've said he'll be back, and he's already stated he's not wearing a Guardian cap when he comes back. But
Foolish.
well, he said it's a personal choice, and I
A foolish personal choice.
I'm not gonna.
That man should wear 6 Guardian caps.
I'm not gonna tell someone how to do their job. I know what choices I would be making in his circumstances. He's making different ones, and that's his prerogative.
It's got to be a vanity thing, right? Because it doesn't affect you. Like, it's not like it affects your vision or it impedes you in any way.
Maybe, but it's got to be at least a little bit heavier. I don't think they are significant weight, but it has to affect at least something.
I don't know.
There's a few guys in the league wearing them.
Yeah, there's not many, but there are a handful that wear them.
And I will say the ones where they actually have the team logo in the same color as the other helmets, you don't really notice them all that much until you get a close up.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll keep an eye on Huntley, but if Tua's back, then it probably doesn't really matter for fantasy in the first place.
Right. Let's hope that Tua can return because this offense has been a cesspool since he's been out. Whether it's Snoop Huntley or Tim Boyle or Skylar Thompson, it has not mattered who they trotted out there. They have not been able to move the ball at all.
Tim Boyle throwing the ball away on 4th down might have been my favorite play of the week.
That man is stealing money.
I just
stop giving him a paycheck, please.
When quarterbacks won't force the issue on 4th down, it's just so hilarious to me. Like, you're turning the ball over one way or the other here.
Right.
Maybe protecting your interception stat, but if I'm a coach, I would much rather you try to force a ball in on 4th down than literally throw it away.
If he was worried about his interception stats, then he should not be playing in the NFL.
True.
That man is leaving a legacy, and it ain't great.
Yeah, but he's getting paid. Like you said, he's stealing money.
Right. Everybody, they keep deciding to pay him every year. So,
all right, other quarterbacks who got paid and then decided to steal money. Deshaun Watson tore his Achilles.
Speaking of stealing money.
Yeah. Unfortunate for him. I don't want to say fortunate for the rest of the world, but it
might be fortunate for the rest of the team in that offense.
Oh, absolutely. It will
He has not been helping their awful cause this year.
No, he's been bad. But his season is done. And obviously, we've seen a lot of players come back from Achilles injuries. Rodgers and Cousins this year did it in a single season. So chances are he'll be back next year. Chances are the team doesn't want him back next year.
Yeah, this has become a problem for the Browns organization.
Oh, my heart goes out to the Haslams. Really, it does. Bunch of scumbags.
Dorian Thompson Robinson, speaking of criminals, not Dorian Thompson Robinson, but the Haslams. Dorian Thompson Robinson came into the game in relief of Deshaun Watson and also looked atrocious and then also got injured. So we finally got to see Jameis Winston run this team.
And I'm pretty sure we'll get Winston going forward.
Oh, man, I hope so.
There was...
For the good of fantasy, put in Winston. I don't care
how
many
interceptions. He is good for fantasy.
I don't care how many interceptions he throws. Put him out there, please.
That 30-30 season in Tampa is still the greatest fantasy achievement of the 20th century or 21st century. 20th century. Oof, what year is it? Anyway, Yeah, so Dorian Thompson-Robin hurt his finger. I guess it's going to be a matter of can he throw the ball, coach was saying.
No, he didn't do a great job of throwing it before he hurt his finger, so not
Well,
sure that it matters.
I know there was speculation about why it was Thompson Robinson in as the backup, and I saw some people saying that there were roster bonuses and being active on game day bonuses that had to be paid to Winston. So maybe it was just the team trying to save a little bit of money, which again, the Haslams, what are you going to do?
That's unfortunate. Let's hope that's not true.
I don't really know if it was that or if, DTR was maybe outplaying him in practice or, there was some other reason entirely. This was the first week that it had happened this way. So.
Right. Yeah. Winston had been the number 2 all season up until this game when they made him the emergency third quarterback. And he ended up playing anyway because both the other quarterbacks ahead of him got injured.
Yep. So we'll hopefully get a healthy Winston and we'll see what happens with DTR. So DTR hurt his finger and Aiden O'Connell hurt his thumb. He was in and then he was out and Minshew was back.
And Minshew was terrible.
It was great for me though, because I bet O'Connell's under.
Yeah, fractured throwing thumb probably helped that number.
He'll be out for a while. That there wasn't a lot of people. I don't think there was a lot of people counting on Aiden O'Connell for their fantasy lives.
Yeah, what was his under, like 75 yards?
No, it was actually like 220 yards, 222 or something like that.
That's way too much.
I was looking at it like, why is this so high? What am I missing? And then I thought, I'm just going to bet the under. And then he got hurt. And obviously I don't want a guy to get hurt, but you don't have to sweat the bet after that.
I don't think he was getting there if he played
I don't think so either.
12 quarters.
I mean,
this offense is not good.
He and Minshew combined didn't hit the number, so
right. It does not matter who they put at quarterback. This offense is awful. Yeah. Shocking, I know, but
yep. All right, we're going to move on to one that's a little bit more fantasy relevant. Jane Daniels hurt his ribs. He left, was it first quarter, right?
Right, this is the only one that actually matters.
Oh, yeah. None of the
fantasy.
Rest of these have any fantasy impact. Well, Watson is on a lot of teams and all that. I don't think he was on a lot of good teams.
Hopefully not in lineups. I don't know how many times we saw him make appearances in Flinch's lineup this year, but couldn't have been very many because I don't think he threw for 200 yards in a game yet this year.
No, but obviously Daniels has been phenomenal this year, both for the Commanders and for fantasy purposes.
Yep. And rib injury, I mean, that's going to be a pain tolerance issue probably. And I assume that they'll worry more about his long-term health and probably not force him out there if he's not ready to go, which means we'll probably see another game of Marcus Mariota, who performed admirably in his stead and was my quarterback 1 on the week.
I didn't see any of this game. I still haven't caught this one on the replay. They scored just as many points, though.
Yeah, it's because Carolina is terrible.
No, that's true.
I think that had more to do with Carolina's terrible team than the skill of Marcus Mariota. But he did a passable job. He moved the offense up and down the field, took advantage of a good matchup. So probably going to see him again this week. It's tough to throw with a rib or rib cartilage injury that we think Daniel suffered here. So I would expect that it's going to be at least a week.
Yeah, presumably. And obviously the team's they're going to want to win their games, but they're also probably going to think about the long-term health of their rookie franchise quarterback. They're not going to do anything irresponsible here, or at least you hope they won't.
And the fact that he plays quarterback is the biggest issue. I mean, other players can get away with it and play through the pain, but when you need to twist your body to throw, it puts a lot of pressure on the ribs and cartilage. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's going to be a problem.
Mariota for a week or two, and we'll see how he manages to operate in that offense. Obviously, the team looked good this week. You mentioned Carolina was terrible. I feel like we should note here, since we're in the injury section, Andy Dalton was in a car accident today.
Right. Yeah, I did see that. We don't know if there was any
The
injury
team
sustained, but
released a statement, said that he was in there with his kids, his wife, his dog. He said that no one from their vehicle went to the hospital. So presumably that means it wasn't too bad of an accident.
right.
I mean, we heard the same thing about Mark Andrews, and then he proceeded to have the worst fantasy start to a season ever.
Right. So yeah, we have no idea. As of recording, we have no idea. No updates yet.
Yeah. So keep an eye out on that one. Look for the news. All right, we're going to move on. There were a bunch of quarterback injuries, but there were unfortunately even more wide receiver injuries this week.
And worse injuries.
Yeah, and worse. Some unfortunate looking ones, some unfortunate ones. Obviously, any injury is unfortunate, but we'll start there. Chris Godwin, Monday Night Football. I guess it's an ankle injury that they're calling it. It was tough. His foot was going the wrong way.
Yeah, fractured dislocation. That's not good.
No, and obviously you don't like to see it. He's the number 2 wide receiver in fantasy right now. He's been having a hell of a year. And
yeah, he was having a career year.
It's just very frustrating. It's tough to see. He had the ACL injury a few years back. It takes a couple of years to come back from that. And then they went through a little bit of, when you're having a quarterback competition and Kyle Trask is a prominent feature, it doesn't speak well. But obviously Baker has settled in there and done extremely well of late. The team was looking good. The player was looking good. It's tough to see.
Yeah, this is going to be a much different offense without Chris Godwin.
Yeah. And also without Mike Evans, who re-aggravated his hamstring injury last night.
Yep. He's going to miss a month.
Yeah, they said he's going to miss a bit of time. They're talking about not putting him on IR because their bye week is within the next 4, and obviously the bye week doesn't count towards your week accrued on the 4 weeks of IR.
Right.
Which I find a little strange. NFL, fix that.
Well, because it's not weeks, it's games.
Yeah, it should just be weeks. Let's look at a time frame. Forget the games. The games are, it doesn't matter how many games you play in a given time, because sometimes you play games on Thursday nights, sometimes you play games on Sunday nights, on Monday nights, or Sunday day, whatever.
Right, because baseball does the 7-day or 15-day.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how many games are in that period of time.
And eventually the NFL will probably work itself out to something like that, where you can, have shorter term IR, because, it hasn't been that long since they introduced the IR designation to return. And now all of a sudden they can designate more people to return and things like that. They'll keep expanding that as the teams realize, hey, it's better for us to get more chances to have our best players out there.
Right. No reason to have less flexibility. How does that benefit anyone? No. I'm not sure.
No. They keep slowly taking things from other sports, like, oh, hey, maybe it's good to not have our trade deadline 4 weeks into the season. All right, you're getting there, NFL. You're getting there. And then they'll have, eventually it'll be like baseball, where they have the trade deadline and then the waiver deadline, and then there's a whole bunch of different ways to make trades after the fact. All right, so Mike Evans hurt his hammy. Hopefully he's back relatively soon. One other player with a hamstring injury, Juju Smith-Schuster. Obviously, this is a little bit lower stakes than Mike Evans.
He had a pretty good game the last game
2 weeks ago. It was.
He was a pretty important part of that offense.
I think we can all agree that Juju is not quite the same as Evans. Although, for the purposes of Kansas City, with them missing all of their wide receivers, he may as well be Mike Evans.
Right. That's definitely going to be a problem for the Chiefs. It was this week. They could not move the ball through the air at all.
Yeah. Well, when you have Patrick Mahomes trucking people on the ground, why do you need to throw the ball?
I'm not sure that's the best way for the offense to operate, but
Yeah, probably not.
It worked this week, and they're undefeated, so who am I to judge?
Who are we to criticize?
The only undefeated team remaining.
Yep. All right, staying in that same game, on the other side of the ball, Brandon Ayuk tore his ACL and his MCL, and Deebo Samuel apparently is being hospitalized with pneumonia and fluid in his lungs. So not a great week to be a 49ers wide receiver. Also, Juwan Jennings missed this game.
Also, Chris Conley sprained his ankle in this game.
Jeez,
their,
I missed that one.
their healthiest receiver is a guy who was just shot in the chest a few weeks ago. That's a problem.
Oh God, it's sad. True, but it's sad. Oh, jeez, what a year they're having.
So yeah, unfortunately, that's it for Brandon Ayuk's season.
Yep.
Not a great first year of the big contract extension.
Nope, not what you like to see.
Debo was released from the hospital.
Good,
So
good for him that he got the money first, though. I would have felt awful if he was like, I don't know. Do you have 1 year left on his deal? Was he on a franchise tag? What was the,
yeah, he was in the last year of his deal.
Yeah, you'd have felt even worse if he
This is
potentially
why
missed out because of that.
This is why the players push for extensions. They want to get paid when they can get paid because things change very quickly in the NFL. But the good news for the Niners is that Debo was released from the hospital today. So, I mean, it's just a matter of him getting healthy and getting over the pneumonia.
Yeah, not exactly a fun thing to get over. That sort of thing lingers for a bit and it'll affect you for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and they need him back as soon as possible because they are running out of playmakers on this team.
George Kittle, get ready for 23 targets next week.
Kittle is currently dealing with a sprained foot as well.
God,
I think he missed practice today too.
Oh,
It's early in the week, so it's possible this is just a maintenance thing. But yeah,
I guess it's Pearsall time.
It's getting very ugly very quickly for San Francisco.
All right, staying in the same division as San Francisco, DK Metcalf has an MCL sprain. He's going to be out for a bit, but I'm pretty sure that he's at least part like robot, and
Right.
he'll be back in a day.
It looked really bad. I thought this was a season ender when they carted him off, but apparently it's just a sprain and he's okay. May not miss any time at all.
We'll see. Again, I'm pretty sure he's a robot.
Well, the good news for DK is the MCL is basically your lateral movement, right? If he doesn't do anything laterally, he just runs straight because he's big and fast and strong.
He's a big, fast, strong man, yes.
So he can still do that. He doesn't need the MCL. He'll be fine.
Just send him on go routes all day long.
That's all he does anyway.
Right. All right. We have a couple more to get to here. Zay Flowers hurt his ankle. It was when he was going out of bounds, right? Can't remember the play.
Yeah, it was kind of late and he got his ankle trapped under a defender. It didn't look great. He did come back with a lot of tape, but he kind of didn't really do anything after that.
Might have just been a decoy.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he was just kind of a decoy at that point. We'll have to watch practice reports.
Yeah. One more team to get to, the Patriots. Jalen Polk has a concussion, and Pop Douglas apparently is joining Debo in the infirmary ward because he is sick as well.
I told you got to watch out for that London food and tea. Body could not adjust to the tea and biscuits.
I would say that the tea and biscuits. I was going to say that like air travel will make anybody sick, but all these teams fly on their own private planes.
Right.
It's not like they're hanging out in the crowded terminals and everything. They're on the Patriots plane, which is stored at it's stored in Warwick. Actually, you see it all the time because they like to park it right on the road for the free advertising sometimes.
Right. Yep.
You know, obviously Polk will keep an eye. He's in the concussion protocol, and Pop, hopefully he's healthy sooner rather than later.
Yeah, generally you don't miss a lot of time for illnesses. Yeah, I mean, he attempted to play in the game. He just didn't make it very far. Yeah. So I assume by next week he should be fine.
Yep. Yeah, and that offense is looking significantly better under Drake May's stewardship than it did with Jacoby Brissett, but it's still not exactly the flying greatest show on turf or anything.
It's not an offense that can afford to lose anyone.
That's true.
Any pieces, even as insignificant as they appear for fantasy, they can't afford to lose anybody.
You're not wrong.
They're already trotting out guys that should be wide receiver 4s on decent teams.
So we're going to move on from the injuries here. Normally we would touch at least on waivers, but at the the end of last show, we re-recorded after waivers had run to have a nice lengthy discussion. Anyone can check out last week's show for that. We're going to move straight on over to trades this week. 5 trades in the league since we last recorded. Not bad. We've been averaging around, 7 in the last few. So
Yep, we've been right at 6 or
bump
7.
those
the last
numbers
few
up.
weeks.
Although today we had 2, so I guess it was a little bit of a late flurry. 1 yesterday. So 5 trades this week. We're going to start with one of your trades. You traded with Judd. Judd acquired Mark Andrews and a 2025 third-round pick attached to Flinch's roster. And in return, Al, you picked up a 2025 first from Judd's roster. How do you feel?
An immediate payoff for Judd because Mark Andrews scored 2 touchdowns on Monday night after being acquired. So it was a good, quick return for him. But
He had an excellent game. 2 touchdowns, only 4 targets, 4 catches, 41 yards.
they didn't need to throw this week. Did not need to throw that much this week.
No, they didn't. And it's
steamrolled.
interesting. He's not out there on a lot of the rushing downs. He only had a 54% snap share this week. Andrews did.
That's pretty much tracking with what he's done all season.
Yeah.
He is not playing in a lot of their different personnel groupings. Kolar comes on mostly in blocking formations, which they occasionally throw out of. So he loses some passing snaps there. And then Isaiah Likely is really the primary receiving tight end. So you only kind of see Andrews when they run 2 tight ends and only when it's passing 2 tight end plays. I am not going to be able to compete this year, unfortunately. So.
Sell all your tight ends. We've been saying it for years. Tight ends are worthless in this league. Take whatever you can get and run.
Well, the problem is I don't have a lot that people actually want to buy. Tight end's the one spot that everyone needs. So those are the guys that I sold.
Well, you say you don't have a lot that people want to buy. You don't have a lot that people want to buy that you also want to sell. Like you don't want to sell CeeDee Lamb.
I mean, I will sell anyone for the right price.
No.
Yeah,
but
these were the ones that matched
you can pretend
the
like
price.
you want to sell them. Yeah, but it's a good pickup for Judd. His tight end room was a little bit lacking.
It's much better now.
And Andrews provides a big boom potential, and he also provides at least some stability. He's been very consistent over the last few years. Obviously, he started this season very, very slow and inconsistent, but that seems to have corrected itself and leveled out.
Yep.
Our next trade was one between myself and Flea. Flea picked up Alec Pierce and a 2025 fourth-round pick attached to Georgia Mike's roster, and in return, I received Raheed Shaheed. Obviously, Shaheed got injured recently, being put on IR, or already been put on IR, I should say. He's going to miss the rest of the year. This one is a pretty straightforward one that we've seen many times before. Flea is a competing team. She's got an injured player that's not going to do her a whole heck of a lot of good. Shaheed to Pierce is a bit of a downgrade. There's an extra pick thrown in so that she can try and pick up something else, or I don't know, maybe save it for 2026 or wherever it was. And or 20, it is 25. Never mind. It's an extra pick she can either use on something else. And in return, I get the player who we think is better and will hopefully come back strong next year.
Yeah, you underpaid by at least a first-round pick here. This is Rashid Shaheed. Come on.
Just because you paid a first-round pick for him doesn't mean the rest of us have to. This is our longest running joke.
This is this was a tough one for Flea to lose Shaheed for the year. He the games that he was healthy for, he was having a expanded role versus what we saw last year in his breakout year. He was adding even more work. So this one kind of hurts. Alec Pierce can do a decent facsimile of what Rashid Shaheed was doing. I mean, he's
if you squint your eyes, you can kind of see it.
Poor man Shaheed, maybe. He's good for a couple of deep touchdowns throughout the rest of the season, probably. But yeah, it's not going to be the same kind of production that Shaheed gave her. But going forward, she wasn't going to get anything from Shaheed, so at least she's able to salvage some depth here.
Yeah, she's in a title window. She wants the pieces now. It makes sense.
Yep, she's
Um,
as all in as you can be right now.
yeah.
So yeah, this is a no-brainer for her to move on from the player who's not going to do anything else this year.
So I've made a decision. I said last week that I wasn't ever going to trade Pierce because I had to trade Mooney and I had to trade Jennings. I didn't have to,
And that
you guys-
lasted less than a week.
when I say I had to, obviously I did not have to. No one was holding a gun to my head making me trade, but I chose to do those things. However, I've made a decision. That decision is that Troy Franklin will die on my roster. If this league is running 40 years from now, he will still be on my team until he is forcibly removed.
Until they remove him from the player pool.
Yes. So that's the decision I've made. We're gonna move on to our next trade, though.
I look forward to you trading
No.
Troy Franklin next week.
No, absolutely not. I am a man of principle, and I will absolutely not. All right, our next trade was one between
Proposed
Mr. Good
trade.
News.
3 first-round picks for Troy Franklin. Oh, don't worry about me. I'm just proposing some trades. Hold on.
Yep. I'll just continue while you do that. Our next trade was Mr. Good News receiving a 2025 third-round pick in exchange from Flinch for one Lucas Krull. I did not see this coming.
Well,
I
you know,
was a little bit surprised by it. I think a lot of us were.
tight ends hold a lot of value in this league, and Lucas Kroll has become the receiving tight end for the Broncos. And
Krull has 14 career receptions in 3 years in the league.
all right, but this last week he did pop up for a couple of big chunk plays.
Sure, he had a couple of
We got to see him on Thursday in the primetime slot.
Yeah, he went 3 for 41, had a nice catch. I think he had a bad drop as well.
Well, we're not going to worry about that because any production from tight end is valuable in this league.
It's been a little bit odd trying to figure out the tight end situation in Denver this year. Everyone, I think, expected Dulcich to be the guy, and that
hasn't worked
not
out.
happened. He's been a healthy scratch a couple of weeks now.
Right. Troutman's been essentially nothing more than a blocker since he's been in the NFL.
Yeah, so I guess Kroll is the one getting the snaps right now. Maybe, obviously Flinch is a Broncos fan, and he, I'm sure, follows the Broncos closer than the rest of us. So this could just be he sees the writing on the wall before the rest of the league catches up with it. Or it could be he's a Broncos fan and he wants his guy, and he's getting excited as a fan, and he'll turn out to be incorrect.
I mean, for the price of a third-round pick, it's worth a gamble. If he can turn into the main receiving tight end for the Broncos, it's definitely worth a third-round pick.
Yeah. Well, if he just does, he had 3 catches for 41 yards last week. If he does approximately that just about every week, he's worth a third-round pick.
Right.
And maybe more, because we need to start 2 tight ends, and 10 points in your tight end spot is, way better than having a 0.45 or whatever it was we saw from a couple of people last week.
Very low bar for relevance at tight end in this format.
I'll be honest, this one did surprise me. I'm not going to pass judgment because obviously that's not our place, but I don't know that it necessarily would have taken a third-round pick to acquire Kroll in 99% of circumstances.
Right, and I think that most formats he is obviously an irrelevant piece.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean he'll be irrelevant going forward.
Very much
If
so.
his role continues to grow based on what we saw on Thursday, in this league, that's an important piece. Any tight ends getting any targets.
Yep, it's true.
And
All right,
he's a young guy. It's not like he's a 36-year-old journeyman.
No, he's only his 3rd year in the league. He's 26 years old, and he's got the size and the blocking chops to be out there. So,
yep. And we know that Sean Payton likes to latch on to these kind of guys.
yeah, Sean Payton's always got something up his sleeve.
Unheralded guys.
All right, so on the other side of things, good for Mr. Good News. He picks up a 3rd-round pick, add it to the stockpile of other picks he's got. This is what he should be doing. He got
Picking up guys off waivers. I dropped Kroll. He picked him up, was able to flip him for a pick.
Yeah, he's held him since September. It's not like he just picked him up last week or anything. So he's,
Yep.
he had a little bit of foresight to know that this might be a player worth having. All right, we've got one more trade to get to. Another one with Flinch. This one was with you.
Also
So
involving a
Flinch,
Bronco.
another one involving a Bronco. Flinch has almost got them all. Uh, he picked up Zach Wilson. So he recently traded for Bo Nix, and Wilson's the backup there, or at least we assume is the backup there. I mean, Stidham's there as well, but he's already got Stidham on the roster, so I guess it doesn't matter at this point. He's got all three Broncos quarterbacks.
Right. He's covered, even if this is another Browns situation where they go through multiple quarterbacks.
Yeah. Nix is healthy as far as we know. There's been no indications that he's not. Anyway.
When I saw this trade offered, I did have to do a quick Google search to make sure that Nix and Stidham weren't like arrested at a strip club together or something.
So we should probably mention the compensation here. In return for you sending away Zach Wilson, you got a 2025 fourth round pick and a 2025 fifth round pick, both attached to Flinch's roster.
Right. It's an interesting strategy to give up multiple picks for what's essentially a third string quarterback right now. But it may be a deal that has a lot of foresight. If you're looking at the struggles of the 2025 potential rookie quarterback class, this projected draft class is very weak at quarterback. So there's a good chance that you're going to see more teams than you would normally see, pull Pittsburgh Steelers and grab some guys off the scrap heap and kind of give them a chance to start a bridge guy. It's possible that Zach Wilson rehabs his image well enough that somebody takes a chance on him, puts him in a camp battle next year.
Yeah.
If there's even a chance that he starts a handful of games next year, then he's definitely worth a few throwaway picks.
It's an interesting way to look at it. I hadn't really considered that angle. I think we've seen a bunch of backup quarterbacks change hands. It seems like everyone is trying to secure their handcuffs now in case of injury, which we haven't really seen a lot of in the past years of this league.
Yeah, it could just be some PTSD after last year's.
That's true. Last
Backup
year was
quarterback
very
apocalypse.
Yeah. And we've seen most of that trade market revolve around third round picks, which could have influenced why he offered a fourth and a fifth. He might not have had that third offer. I haven't really looked at what he has available. And I don't know that it necessarily would have taken a third to get Wilson anyways. But
he just used his third to buy Lucas Kroll.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Anyway, he secures his backup there. You pick up some late round picks. I'm sure those will last a long time on your roster.
Can't wait to make those picks at the draft.
Yeah. All right. That wraps up our trades for the week.
We got one more.
That doesn't wrap up our trades for today. Shut up. All right. This one was between Mel, the commissioner, and JMC. In this one, Mel picked up Kareem Hunt and a 2026 fifth round pick attached to JMC's roster. In return, JMC picked up a 2026 third round pick attached to Mel's roster. Mel pays a third, gets back Hunt and a fifth. This is a solid addition of probably short term, but maybe long term running back depth for Mel.
Yep, this is a classic contender, non-contender move. JMC had the foresight to pick up Kareem Hunt before anyone else could get him when he was rumored to be signing with the Chiefs practice squad. And it's come to fruition that he's now the lead back for Kansas City. So he now has value that he didn't have before. And he's able to turn that into a future third round pick. And Mel acquires running back depth, which we know there's always a need when you're a contending team. There's never enough running backs. And Hunt's been productive in the role as the main guy. So it's cheap production for him, giving away a third round pick, not this year, but next year's class.
Yep. And he gets a fifth back. Yep. A lotto shot at the end.
Yeah. So really this is a win-win for both based on the directions that the teams are moving in. It was a good deal for both sides. Made sense.
Been there 3 weeks, started 2 weeks, and had 2 20-point games. As long as that continues, he's well worth a third.
Yep. Yeah, it was a smart buy.
And I don't know about you, but I have not seen any news about Pacheco even being close to return.
Yeah, it's going to be a while. I mean, you're talking about broken bones.
Yeah.
You can't make those heal faster
Nope. There's only so much you can do.
unless you're like Wolverine, I guess. I'm not sure. Do his
We'll
bones
look
do his
into
bones
that.
break?
Well,
They're made of some kind of metal, aren't they?
it depends on which comic run you're talking about. Here's where we're going to lose a bunch of people. But some of them, he's got the adamantium on the skeleton. Some of them, some of the older ones in the origin stories and stuff like that, and a lot of other ones, he doesn't have the adamantium. When he just has the bones, his bones still break. It's just a matter of they heal quickly and he heals quickly.
Right. Either way, that doesn't apply to Pacheco. So
No,
I'm guessing we're still probably a month plus away from his bones healing like a
Minor.
normal human being.
minor detour there. Yeah, no, he'll be back at some point, but it might not be until after the fantasy season is over.
Right.
The Chiefs are obviously, as we said before, undefeated and have, I'm guessing, Super Bowl aspirations again. So they're not gonna risk him in the regular season if they've got no reason to.
Yeah, and the offense continues to morph into a very run-heavy
Yeah.
team here. Every week they lose another receiver, and they lean on the run game that much harder.
I'm surprised they haven't traded for or signed another receiver.
Yeah, well, I guess when you've got guys like Sky Moore and Mecole Hardman and Justin Watson, where do you need more receivers for?
The best part was that MVS has been sitting out there as a free agent for like a week, and they were just like, "No, we're good."
We've had that experience.
Yeah.
We know what's going to happen with that. We're good.
Yep. All right, we're gonna move on to our matchup section. All right, so the matchups this week we had a league median score of 188.49. A little bit lower than we've been seeing. There was some buys this week. Some of those injuries may have contributed to this as well. A couple of ugly matchups. Just a bit of a lower score than we've seen.
Yep. Injuries and bye weeks are starting to mount for a few teams.
Yep. Our highest scoring team of the week was one Big Biscuits with a 247.45. And he faced off against one Mel Crisp, the commissioner, who also put up a 224.2 and was the second highest scoring team of the week. We don't often see the two top scorers facing off against each other.
Rough matchup draw for Mel this week.
Yeah, that's tough. Normally, when you're the second highest scoring team, you could expect to win.
Right. At least we got the win against the median. So
yeah, so it's not a complete loss. He goes 1-1. Big gets the 2-point day, or the 2-win day, I should say. So the big games in this one were on both sides. Obviously, the two highest scoring teams, they're both going to have a lot of high scores. Baker Mayfield, almost 30 points. Joe Mixon, Javonte Williams, big games for Big. But really what I want to talk about in this matchup is the fact that Mel had 5 tight ends in his starting lineup. He had Ertz, Kraft, Gray, Fant, and Conklin. And the lowest scoring one of these, Conklin, was still at 13.7.
taking advantage of that tight end premium scoring this week.
I don't know if we've ever had a full 6, or I guess it's possible that we could have 7 with the super flex, but that's a lot of tight ends in there.
I'm waiting for you. I'm sure you'll be the first one to do that.
Well, I'm trying, but nobody will trade me tight ends for free, so I'm going to have to actually pay for them.
You got plenty of thirds. You could have got Lucas Kroll.
I'll see what I can do with a third. It was a good day for his tight ends. A little bit of a disappointing day for some other positions. Really, the only difference here is that as we go down the roster, Mel was getting 14s, 15s, 16s. Big was getting 20, 18, 17s. So we, obviously big games for both of these guys. Heavyweight matchup, potential playoff or even finals preview.
Yeah, Big's team is just too deep. I mean, in this format, he's just abusing the rest of us with his depth. He can have 5 regular starters have down weeks, and it doesn't slow him at all. The promising result for Mel was having Josh Allen back in that quarterback 1 spot. It's been a rough start to the season. I guess all he was missing was Amari Cooper.
Apparently, who knew? And also, he did all of his damage through the air. 3 carries, 1 yard for Josh Allen.
Yep.
Not the normal rushing line you expect from him.
Well, he had somebody to actually throw it to this week.
on big side of things, Mixon, Williams, Walker, Jacobs, Connor, Ryan Robinson, lot of running backs in there.
Yeah, we've been saying it all season. He has a deep, talented stable of running backs.
Yeah.
And this has been the year of the running back. Seems like we finally gotten the overcorrection of NFL teams getting smaller, lighter, quicker defenders. We're finally seeing the NFL offenses adjust and just running the ball at these nickel and dime defenses as base sets.
Yeah. Well, it had to happen at some point.
205-pound linebackers.
Yeah. It had to happen. We knew the correction was coming. It was just a matter of can they actually take advantage and will the offenses do it? Because not a lot of them wanted to do it, it seemed.
Right.
All right. We're going to move on to our next highest scoring team. That was Judd. Judd beat me this week. He put up a 219.49. And on the other side of things, I put up 116.27. Not exactly a close matchup here.
Nope. Judd had another good week.
He did.
You had another not so good week.
I did. Yeah. So Judd had a couple of really big days. The interesting one for me here is that he had 25 points from KDOT and then 23 points from Mark Andrews.
Right.
Suddenly he's gone from struggling
worst.
at the tight end position to having more than 50 points or almost 50 points at the tight end position.
And wait until Taysom Hill comes back. This team's going to be a tight end juggernaut.
Yeah, I suppose so. On my side of the ball, Brock Bowers remains the best draft pick I've ever made. And apparently Russell Wilson is my QB1 now. This is the world I'm living in.
So yeah, you don't want to talk about how you had 6 tight ends in your lineup this week?
So here's the difference. I had tight ends in my lineup because they were really bad. I had a 2.15 for my tight end. So Mel having a 13.7 from Conklin is a lot better than me having a 2.15 from Julian Hill. Yes,
you guys
I had 6 tight ends in my roster
because everyone else on your
5
bench
of them
zero.
scored single digits. So this really doesn't count the same way. And again, Mel was the second highest scoring team on the week. I'm pretty sure I was the second lowest scoring.
So slightly different tight end build here. Is that what you're saying?
Not exactly equal circumstance here. Yes, technically I had 6 tight ends. I didn't even notice that because I didn't scroll that far down because I had already seen that the scores were in the single digits. Thank you for bringing that up, though. I guess someone has had 6 tight ends in there, Mel.
There you go.
Yep. Awful.
You started it.
That doesn't count.
You started
it. Doesn't count unless you're a competitive team. All right. So congrats to Judd. He gets the 2 wins. I take the 2 losses. Judd, I should have been giving everyone updates on standings here, or at least records. Judd gets the 2 wins. He moves to 11-3. Same as Mel at 11-3 and Big at 12-2. I, on the other hand, have fallen to 1-13. Don't worry, I'll get a second win eventually. Maybe.
When are you playing Mr. Goodness?
I'm pretty sure that's how I got the first win. Oh no, it was I might have beaten Rug or something. I'm not sure. There's a chance I finish with 1 win. Who knows? It doesn't matter. It's max points 4 is what the differentiation is at the bottom of things, anyways. All right, our next highest scoring team was Flinch. Flinch put up a 215.30. He took down Criddle, who put up a 184.61. Tough loss for Criddle here. He was only 4 points under that median score and played one of the other high-scoring teams.
Yeah, thank you, Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, right.
Lamar Jackson saved this matchup for Flinch on Monday night with his near 40 points.
Yeah, well, Lamar and Derrick Henry. We've seen this happen a few times now. Derrick Henry is currently on pace to have the rushing record, to break the rushing record. So
look out, Eric Dickerson.
Yeah, well, he's got the extra game to do it. So, I mean, I don't know if it really, how do you, obviously it counts, like the record is the record, but how do you compare a 17 game record versus a 16 game record? Obviously, the
Well,
16 is slightly more impressive.
and the offensive environment is very different now. We don't see guys handle these kind of workloads that they
No,
were
it's true.
getting when Eric Dickerson was breaking the rushing record. Guys aren't getting 350 carries a season anymore.
This is very true. So Flinch goes 2-0. He moves to 12-2 on the year. And Criddle, unfortunately for him, goes 0-2 and drops to 6-8. Tough luck for Criddle. He had just gotten back to even, and things were looking up after getting all of the Eagles back from bye. Tough luck, 2-0 or 0-2. So as you were saying, for Flinch, 40 points from Lamar Jackson. He's looking, again, like you said last week, like he's going to win another MVP. 26-point day from Derrick Henry, 27-point day from Brees Hall. Big scores up at the top. Things tail off at the bottom. But Flinch is doing something right.
Yeah, again, we've seen the teams that built through a strong running back room just kind of dominate this year. Flinch and Big specifically built their teams this way.
Which is quite in contrast to last year when you won the title with what is probably the worst title winning running back room we will see in this league.
Yeah, the teams that built wide receiver heavy have not done well this season.
So on the other side of things, the Eagles killed the Giants. So Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley had good days. Will Disley showing up big. 8 catches, 81 yards for Criddle's tight end spot. And George Kittle obviously with a big day as well. On the other side of things at tight end, though, for Flinch, 10 points from Dalton Kincaid, or almost 11. And then my personal favorite here is 0 from Adam Troutman. I think I know why Mel picked Troutman.
Yeah, this is probably why he gave up a third-round pick for Lucas Krull.
Could have something to do with it. Anything you want to touch on from Criddle's roster?
Just a continuation of a kind of down fantasy season for CJ Stroud. Only 3 points this week on a close loss. 86 yards passing. That's not what we were hoping for from CJ Stroud this year.
No, the team has done well, but Stroud from a fantasy perspective has been, I don't know if mediocre is the right word, but he hasn't been great.
Disappointing.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it.
Because based on the expectations of him kind of taking the next step, building upon his rookie campaign, really has not happened, at least from a fantasy perspective. The team's still obviously very competitive.
Yeah, last year he was the QB 11 in his rookie season. Right now, this year, he's QB 12 on the year. So it's not like he's fallen off or anything, but he hasn't stepped up.
Right. We expected some more growth.
All right, we're going to move on here. Our next highest scoring team was your team, sir. You put up a 202.55, and you beat Flea, who put up a 192.36. This is another matchup where two teams are over the median, and you decided to pack it in and start selling off pieces and immediately won 2 games.
Thank you, Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, he was your QB1.
He was the high scoring quarterback in this matchup.
Yep, that's another way to put it. I did not think about that. Yeah, so he was your QB1, beat out Goff. Flea only had Darnold in there. I am speechless with Mariota being a QB1 in the year 2024.
Well, it makes you feel better. Michael Hasty was my running back too. This was not a great week.
Hasty had 16 points though. It's not like it's not like you having a 2-point game in there like I had with Hill.
This was more about Flea having a down week than me having a great week. I did make it over the median, but it wasn't a spectacular week. There's a bunch of guys in here that had surprise performances that I'm not expecting to continue going forward.
Like you would say, Hasty and maybe Boyd, possibly
Marcus Mariota,
Dearness Johnson.
Yeah, it was
Mason Tipton.
It was a ragtag group in the lineup this week to get the win, double win.
Yeah, this was a pretty close one. Only a 10-point difference between you two. I don't want to say necessarily bad luck for Flea facing your team because she didn't put up a great week either. I mean, she was over the median, obviously, but it wasn't as strong a performance as we've seen most of the year from her.
Yeah, and her quarterbacks kind of continue to let her down. Dak was on bye this week. Stafford didn't do anything. Darnold had a decent game, but Etienne out, Hopkins hurt, not doing much. Evans getting hurt, Tyreek Hill continuing to be pulled down by the poor quarterback play. She had a lot of guys that have been lineup staples that did not appear in her lineup this week.
Yep. Yeah, and some good games as well. Bigsby with 25, Bijan Robinson 24.8, almost 25 points. Her tight end position, Ingram 13, Kelsey 9. It wasn't awful or anything. She'll have better weeks. So after this one, you are now 7-7, and Flea is 9-5. So a couple tough weeks for her has dropped her off the pace record wise, but she's still firmly in the playoff picture. You are still hanging on that fringe in kind of the same category as Criddle, where it's possible, but it's looking less likely, as you sell off pieces and as we move on.
Yep.
All right. So our next highest scoring team was Benign Rug, Mr. Marbles. He put up a 181.79 and took down Georgia Mike of H&H Bagels with a 152.47. I don't know why I suddenly decided to give team names along with everything. But this moves Benign Rug to a score of 2-12 and drops Georgia Mike to a score of 8-6. This is not how I expected this matchup to go.
This is clearly the most surprising of the matchups this week.
Yeah.
And Rugg did it without his best fantasy player. Jaden Daniels has been carrying this team all year.
Yep.
He did it without Daniels this week.
Well, he finally has a second starting quarterback in there. Drake May was his QB1 this week with a 22-point day over in London, despite not having Polk and Pop for half the game. That feels like it should have been something in like 1912.
Polk and Pop?
Shout out to Big. Play some polka for us. Anyway, and I completely lost my train of thought after this. So this is a tough loss for Georgia Mike. He's been buying a lot. He's been doing well. He's been firmly in the playoff picture and in the playoff hunt, and then he gets just a really tough day. 152 is a low score. Obviously, he had a bunch of players on bye. The Bears on bye. Caleb was out. Cowboys on bye. Rico Dowdle was gone. Roma Dunze out with the Bears. But still, this was a tough go.
Yeah, he doesn't have the deepest team, so when he has a couple of guys that are normally lineup staples for him out or on bye or disappointing weeks, it definitely hurts his overall score.
Yeah. So for Rugg having a 182-point day, the strength of this was Brian Thomas and Hunter Henry in London actually showing up. Drake May in London showing up. I almost said Drake London because, there's only so many Drakes. And the rest of his team all having passable days. He had bad spots at the running back position, but everybody else was pretty solid.
Yep. Not enough to get over the median. He doesn't have that kind of depth on this team or talent. He's missing players at several positions. He just gets basically nothing every week at running back by design. But it was enough to beat Georgia Mike's team this week and get a win at least.
Yeah, if he had Daniels in there producing the way he has been this year, he might have gotten over the median.
Yep, it's very possible. His lowest score was Wan'Dale Robinson with a 9.8. So,
on the other side of things, just some disappointing days from a lot of guys on Georgia Mike's team. He does end up with 3 tight ends in there. Kyle Pitts has looked good since he acquired him. Another almost 20-point day. The also recently, although less recently acquired Jordan Akins in there with a 12-point day.
Surprising that Akins still put up a passable line with Njoku back and scoring 30 points himself. I think he had 14 targets, and there's still some for Akins to go around.
Yep. And I said 3. I meant 4 because he had Foster Moreau down there to go with Austin Hooper in his flex spots. A lot of tight ends and a lot of flex spots this week. 4, 5, and 6 from a few different lineups.
Probably why it was a down week for scoring across the league.
That makes sense. All right. And speaking of down scoring, we have our next and final matchup. JMC put up a 172.28, and he beat Mr. Good News, who put up a 54.6. Mr. Good News setting new lows for us, showing us how to really tank.
It was better than last week.
He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros in his lineup. That is impressive.
And he managed to sell the spike week from Lucas Kroll.
Yep. So next week we could be looking at 7 zeros.
Yeah,
nice if you see it on a check, not great if you see it in your lineup.
This
All
is
right.
a full-on tank job, and he's doing very well.
Yep. And on the other side of things, we saw Kareem Hunt with a big day for JMC. He's been sold off. So both of these teams looking to move those pieces that are valuable now, but may or may not be valuable in the future. And speaking of those pieces, we saw JMC put Jonnu Smith on the trade block. Jonnu Smith put up 30 points this week.
Yeah, he was the only production through the air for Miami in this game.
I'll be interested to see if that continues once Tua is back. I honestly was kind of excited for Jonnu in this offense. The way we see a lot of Miami stuff, Miami's offense run things is their speed at getting down the field, and that tends to open up a lot of other space. And you would think that would be good for the tight ends, but it has not been over the last few years. However, I think I realized the problem. It's that Mike McDaniel doesn't care about that open space and also just wants another tight end who can be fast and get mismatches. And Jonnu Smith is still fast and does get those mismatches. So I think they're actually going to continue to use him when Tua's back. I don't know if it'll be quite to this degree, but I think he'll be productive.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, this offense has been broken since Tua's been out.
It's
so
been awful. So I can understand why people are somewhat apprehensive to buy in on Jonnu.
Tight end hasn't been a super productive position in this offense since McDaniel's been there. But he comes from a background of offenses that have featured very productive tight ends. So it's possibly just hasn't had the personnel that he likes, and maybe Jonnu is going to be the answer. They certainly could use a third receiving threat because none of the wide receiver threes they've brought in have done anything.
What are you talking about? They got Odell.
Odell Beckham Jr. Has he caught a pass yet this season?
He had a drop this week. I don't know if he had a catch.
I think he's 0 for the season so far.
All right. So that about wraps up our matchup section. We're going to move on now to America's favorite segment, our playoff predictor odds as presented by Dynasty Daddy. I guess I shouldn't say as presented by. We have no affiliation with them. As calculated by Dynasty Daddy. So up at the top this week, we have 4 teams at 99 and 98%. For those of you keeping track, that's really, really high. All right, we have in order according to Dynasty Daddy, Big, Flinch, Mel, and Judd all at 98% chance and above percent odds to make the playoffs. At this point, I think we can pencil them all in. They're all 12-2 or 11-3.
Yeah, we're starting to see some separation now from these top teams versus the kind of fringe playoff teams.
Just after those, we have a tier of her own for Flea. She's at 92%, which really is not that far off of that top tier. She's 9-5. She's going to make the playoffs. We know this.
Yeah, she's a couple games behind their pace record-wise so far, in the early part of the season. But
yeah, one bad week for a couple of them and one good week for her, and we're tied again.
She's a lot closer to those teams than the rest of the teams behind.
Yeah. So after Flea for that last spot, we have 3 teams. Your team is 7-7 with a 56% chance. Georgia Mike is 8-6 with a 39% chance, and Criddle is 6-8 with an 18% chance. Now I know that you've been selling off and that Georgia Mike and Criddle have been buying, but you technically, according to Dynasty Daddy, still have the better chance than they do. Well, Criddle hasn't really been buying. I shouldn't say that, but
yeah, he did some buying in the off season.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's we'll see how long I can stay in this race as I continue to lose pieces both through injury and trade.
Yep, it'll be interesting to watch. We're down to basically one spot up for grabs as long as these odds hold fairly close. Now, we did see last year, a pretty late charge from Mel to get into the playoffs, but it doesn't seem like we really have that strong team who had a bad record to start off. It seems like most of the really good teams got the really good records, and then the teams that are in the middle are in the middle. It doesn't seem like anybody's really out of place right now.
Yeah, these odds match up pretty well with actual points scored, which is probably a better indicator than, actual record. Although with our league having the extra game against the median, it kind of balances that out a little more.
Yep, it does.
You don't see as many teams with just unlucky records and a lot of points scored.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the playoff predictor odds. Tune in next week where we will see pretty much no movement.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect there to be much. There's kind of 3 teams that are sitting on the fringe fighting for that last playoff spot. And then a couple teams at the top that are pretty locked in and a couple teams at the bottom that are pretty locked in. Won't see a lot of movement.
We stratified early this year. That doesn't mean that the playoffs will be predictable when they get here.
Right. Anything can happen in a 1-week sample size, as we've seen.
With Benign Rug this week, in fact.
Exactly.
Shout out to Rug. So that's basically going to end us for today. We did an extra segment last week, and we do want to do more of those. So we're going to do something that we haven't done before, which is solicit from the league here and anyone else, I suppose, who's listening. Tell us what you want to hear us talk about. Obviously, if we discuss something specific in the league, like last week where we had the in-depth waiver discussion, we'll just automatically do that. But we have ideas for what we want to talk about, but we also want to make something that you guys listening want to actually listen to. So give us your suggestions, be they here in private, in league chat, however you want to communicate them to us. And we will hopefully have more segments like that. I don't know if we're going to be able to do it every week, hopefully every week, but we'll get to them as we get to them.
Yeah, we'd like to continue the philosophy of Dynasty with any other hot button topics that come up.
The philosophy of Dynasty. I like that.
That's what I've dubbed it.
Yeah, no, it's essentially what it is. The only thing I want to say this week in the general idea of the philosophy of Dynasty is that Dynasty leagues like this offer a lot of interactions with the league mates over the course of a long time, and I just want to shout out this league for being a good group of people to play with and to talk about the philosophy of fantasy in general with. I very much enjoy pretty much everyone in this league, pretty much all the time, and I like that we're able to have a nice community there.
Not me, I hate you all.
There we go. All right. Well, that's going to wrap us up for today. We'll see everybody next week, and until then,
see you in the league chat.